Kevin Clear here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at the Benchmade Presidio 2. I will ask you to forgive my voice. I'm just having a bit of laryngitis here, but I think I've got my sound set up in a way that I can speak softly and it'll still come through just fine. We've got the Benchmade Presidio 2 here, and this is a knife that a number of you have asked me about because, you know, I like the larger stuff. I like stuff that's a little heavier built, and this really fits into my wheelhouse quite nicely. This is also one of the more tactical offerings from Benchmade. You know, the nanny seals are going to love this because it's going to fit right in with their 511s and their Glock 19 and their AR-15. You know, it almost has even the similar stylings to, you know, the aluminum you might find on a firearm. And so this is a knife pretty much, you know, aimed right at the sort of tactical community. And you know what, that's not wrong. That's fine. Benchmade does sell a lot of knives to sort of non-knife people. They're one of the ones who've done a good job making the transition without compromising their quality a whole lot. So I've got to give them some credit for that. You know, I know there's the recent faux pas where they thought it would be a good idea to cut up some guns, which probably didn't help them with that community a whole lot. But nonetheless, the Presidio is here, and we're going to talk about whether or not it's a good knife. And generally speaking, you know, if you're just here to kind of get an idea, is this a piece of junk or not? It's a pretty good knife. It's got some challenges, and it's not going to be for everybody, but we'll talk about those things as we work our way through the review here. So first off, size and weight. This is a large knife, okay? There is a small version of this. And so if you don't like larger knives, there is the option to go with a shrunken down version. Of course, for me, I always go with the large. I really like that. And this guy's 3 8 3/4 inches overall, 3 11/16 on the blade, 5 1/16 on the handle. Very large grip area. This is one thing I've got to say is if you're one of those people that just have really, really large hands and you have a hard time finding a knife that fits you, this is going to do the trick. You know, in addition to, you know, if I measure from about here to here, it's about 4 inches, and you still have this back where if you had huge hands, your pinky could still kind of sit on the handle back here. So a whole lot of real estate on this knife. You know, I don't know, maybe you're wearing really big gloves or something that make your hands take up a lot more space, but that's not going to be an issue with this guy. Now the weight is going to be a bit of an issue. This guy weighs in at 6.26 ounces. So fairly hefty knife at 6 ounces, although honestly, you know, I'm wearing sort of cargo shorts today, and I've carried this knife around a bit in cargo shorts, and it's not uncomfortable. So outside of, and I feel this way about everything, all the way up to about 7.5, 8 ounces, which is still getting pretty hefty. But, you know, unless you're wearing sort of lightweight running shorts or, you know, some of those really thin climbing pants or something, even a 7-ounce knife is not that big of a deal. So, how does this carry in pocket? Well, it's a little thicker. You know, we've got a bit of substance here to this handle, so it does take up a fair bit of space in pocket, but it goes in and out of pocket nicely, and I find it's quite comfortable to carry with that deep carry Benchmade clip there, which I do like these Benchmade clips a fair bit. I've talked about this before, but I tried to get some of the short clips off of the bug out and the bailout, and they're not willing to send those clips out for free. It's only these kind you can get for free. If that ever changes, I would like to actually try some of those shorter Benchmade clips on a couple of my Benchmade knives. Anyway, moving on, this does carry pretty nicely in pocket, unless, you know, you're specifically dressed in a way that requires something a little more lightweight. Blade on this is S30V, and Benchmade does a really good job with its S30V. In fact, sharpening this, I will say, is not for the faint of heart. It did take me a fair bit of time and energy. By the way, if you can't notice that just by looking, I did get this off the secondary market, so it needed a little bit of TLC. I had to take it apart and clean things up, sharpen it, and you know, now it's running fantastic. It's very smooth, very fast, but when I first got it, that was not the case. Anyway, back to the blade here. So S30V, flat grind, top swedge here. It's sort of, Benchmade does this every once in a while, and I really dislike it. This one is not as bad. It's sort of starting to get that dagger style look that Benchmade likes to do, like on the 931 Purdue and stuff like that. I don't like dagger style blades at all, especially with a false edge. I really don't even like them with the two-sided edge. That's not the kind of blade that I really have any use for in my life. I suppose if I was, you know, an operator and I needed a knife that I could take throats out with or something, maybe that would be useful. Nice thin edge, and this is a pretty nice cutting blade. Okay, so we've got only 124,000 stock, so it's pretty thin blade stock here. Come on, camera. There we go. Pretty thin blade stock here, reasonably thin behind the edge. It's like 22 thousandths. And yeah, this cuts really, really nicely. If you're, everything from, opening an envelope, cutting cardboard, or if you're cutting up an apple for your kids, whatever the case may be, this does work really, really nicely. I guess there may be some who would see this as being too thin. You want something a little more robust, and maybe in that case you'd have to look toward maybe the Adamas or something like that. I do find this is sort of a kindred spirit to the Adamas in that the handle is very substantial, and you sort of get that feel of I've got this big heavy duty knife when you're holding this. Let's go ahead now that we've talked about the blade. It holds an edge like crazy, and I've talked about the fact Benchmade's done a really good job, but it's going to take you a little bit of time and energy to sharpen this. And to me, that's fine. I don't mind. I'd rather have a knife that's a little harder, that's holding an edge a little better, that can be a little more difficult to sharpen. I've got the equipment to do it. But if that's a real concern, that may be something for you to think about. Moving on to lockup and deployment. This is not a lock we're unfamiliar with, okay? So we've got a Benchmade Axis lock here. And like many Benchmades, again, I got this on the secondary market. It wasn't amazing when I got it, but with a little bit of cleaning, it has come out really, really nice. So the action on this is very, very good. And I almost feel bad for the person who sold it to me, because I wonder if they were like, man, the action's not that great, but all it really needed was a little bit of cleaning and lubricating, and now it's fantastic. So the action is very good. Typical Axis lock. There's not a whole lot to say here. Benchmade washers, they do wear in very, very nicely. It does have the same problem that every once in a while you'll get with just about every Benchmade, and that is when you initially deploy it. Let's see if it worked this time. Yeah, you can feel just a teeny bit of up and down play. What's happened is this lock bar has not slid all the way up into position. So once it slides into position, and it usually does that, I found if you, so let's say you just opened this up and then you feel a little bit of play and then you cut something, well, that cutting puts positive pressure on the blade and allows that lock bar to slide in, and then as soon as you make your first cut, that blade play goes away, and that's how this one kind of works. And almost every Benchmade I've seen, because gunk and stuff gets in there and it doesn't allow the lock bar here to slide all the way into place, and so just about every Benchmade, from time to time, you'll get a little bit of up and down blade play, which goes away pretty much the second you use the knife or if you shake it around a little bit. And so that I don't really mind, okay? Lockup and deployment on this is a huge win. It's fast, it's comfortable, it's all the things that we have come to love about the Axis lock. You see them all implemented here very well. Handle construction and ergonomics is fairly good. You can see the only issue I would say is the jimping here and here is maybe a little bit sharp for some people. If you work in an office and you get manicures all the time, maybe you're not going to like it. But for me, I do a lot of outdoor work, a lot of construction stuff, and so my hands are maybe a little beaten up, and it doesn't bother me in the least. Very, very good positive grip. I will say that, in a position like this where you're using that thumb ramp, or even up here, I do like the fact they didn't bring the swedge back all the way, because I like to put my thumb there in a saber grip. I would have even appreciated a little more area here for my thumb. Now it's a fairly thin blade, so you don't have a ton of room to push down. And of course the lighting has changed. I'm going to see if I can fix that right now. Could be a complete failure, but hopefully, it kind of worked. Okay. So, talking about handle construction, of course, aluminum over stainless steel. It would be kind of nice to see this a little bit lighter, and I think you could achieve that just by going with G10. And, we all love G10, and it's a good, well-known design. So if they released a G10 version of this, I think it would be a nice option for us, and it would definitely weigh, probably weigh closer to 5 ounces instead of 6 ounces. But that said, the aluminum is comfortable. It's grippy, especially with the lines here milled into it, and I don't really have any complaints about it. Definitely a knife that is very confidence inspiring. Does have a movable clip, so you can see deep carry clip either there or there. And as I said, this was used, so it's been around the block a couple of times. Let's go ahead, now that we've covered just about everything, the only real complaint I have about the handle is maybe it's a little heavy, but you guys know I like larger knives, so that weight doesn't really bother me. I do have quite a number of comparisons to get to, and I'm going to start with some Benchmades and then move into some other options as well. So first off, One of my favorite Benchmades of all time is the Crooked River. The Presidio compares pretty well to the Crooked River from a function standpoint. Perhaps the belly out here would make this a slightly better skinning knife. Remember, this is from the Hunt series, in fact, so I use it as sort of a high-end EDC knife, but it was initially designed to be more of a hunting knife and carry the stylings of, you know, the Buck 110 and stuff like that. I like it quite a bit. The handle on the Presidio is going to be a little grippier, and I think the Presidio sells for perhaps a little bit more than the Crooked River does. Let's grab another Benchmade. Here, of course, is the Super Freak. The Super Freak is going to be maybe a little more suited to EDC. That M4 steel is definitely going to be just as difficult to sharpen. The price on this guy is going to be probably a little higher, but the Standard Freak may be a better option for you if you want something a little lighter, a little smaller, a little easier to carry. And the Super Freak is fantastic as an EDC blade, where this is perhaps maybe a bit more of a tactical or a hard use blade. Okay. Oh, you know what we should do is bring in a pair of two. I always try to do that off the start, but I kind of forgot this time. So there's a pair of two, more for size comparison than anything else. I wouldn't say these are really, really good direct competitors. Got a couple of ZTs. Since we're talking about hard use knives, I always like to bring in a ZT or two. There is the 0640, and there is the 0561. The 0561 is going to probably be the most comparable. And then I want to bring in a couple of knives that, you know, might present good options for either someone who's on a budget or wants something a little lighter. So first off, let's do the budget option. The Cold Steel Recon 1 is an absolutely fantastic knife. It is available in a drop point, so it would even look very similar. These are pretty much direct competitors, right? They're both designed to be heavy-duty, sort of tactical-ish knives. The big difference is going to be the price. Recon 1s go for like under $100, and of course the Benchmade is going to be considerably more than that. And that, I think, is a major consideration that you're going to want to make. If you're looking seriously at a Presidio, you ought to look seriously at a Recon 1 as well. Want to grab another Spyderco here, and that is the Spyderco Amalgam. Now, again, this is going to be similar sort of role, right? It's meant to be a little heavier duty, a little more. What would you say? A little more about doing some more difficult cutting tasks than, say, the PM2 would be. And so it would be competing a little more directly with the Presidio, but it does some things a little better. It's every bit as comfortable in hand. The blade is going to be the same steel. The price is going to be probably pretty similar, but the Amalgam is going to carry quite a bit more comfortably than the Presidio, and that may be a consideration for some. Finally, one last knife that I feel like really needs to be brought in here, and that, of course, is the AD10, the very awesome cold steel for this year. Again, similar, you know, sort of philosophy going on with these two knives, both meant to be the kind of knife that you can do a little more than, you know, your lighter use EDC style knife. Closer again in price point. I think Cold Steel has raised the price on these, and I'm not sure what they go for now. Probably 140 to 150, where I think they were like 130 initially. So a little closer in price point, but again, a very, very good option if you're seriously considering a Presidio, or if you're in the market for one of those, you know, harder use, tactical style knives. What are my overall thoughts on this knife? Is it a recommend or is it a pass? Honestly, guys, there's a lot that I like about this knife. It's comfortable in hand. It's highly functional. The only sort of drawback that I can really see is the weight, but many of the knives that I just showed you weigh a very similar amount. So that's, you know, I mean, it's a nicely designed, well-built, highly functional large knife, and so if you like that kind of thing and you're willing to pay the price that Benchmade asks, I guess that'd be the only other issue, would be they can be a little pricey. But I think this is a really good knife that many people will get a lot of use and enjoyment out of. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check my links down in the description box below. I'll put a link to White Mountain Knives. You can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF for 10% off there. I'll also put a link to my Amazon store, and I'm pretty sure this guy is in my Amazon store already. If it's not, I'll add it shortly here. Thanks for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.